As many of you know, I'm Dr. Alejandro.
And I'm Dr. Emily.
And we're on a mission to rebuild chiropractic one partnership at a time.
We help chiropractors open practices, revive failing ones, and step into their true calling. This is the Path to Victory podcast. I'm coming at you guys solo again today because Alejandro is still out of town, and I wanted to share a little bit about my background, and maybe not in full detail, but just a couple things that really defined me from my background. I know we've heard about Alejandro's a little bit, and I love his background. I love his history. I thought it might be cool for you guys to share, for me to share about my history and some things that define me. So 3 major moments that define me, I'm going to talk about today, how it defined my work ethic, my grit, and my tenacity, and hopefully how you can apply that to your life as well. So growing up, I had an amazing childhood. I was loved. I was cared for. We always had food on our table, even if it was just microwave Easy Mac and Pop-Tarts, whatever. We didn't go hungry, right? We were not living in poverty by any stretch of the imagination, but it was definitely lower middle class for sure. Unfortunately, it didn't work out for my parents. They got divorced at a young age, which I could do a whole other episode on. But for a while, it was just my mom and I living in our house together because my siblings had moved out. They had gone to college, and I'm the youngest. So my mom and I were living together, and I remember I qualified. I was really, really deep and into my soccer career, which I think kept me out of a lot of trouble. Just looking back on it. And looking back, I really was a solid player. I had the footwork, I had the speed, I had the skill sets, I had stamina, I had the intelligence to play at a high level. And so much so that I tried out for this team. I had no idea if I would get it or not, but it was an Olympic Development Program team, ODP. And turns out I qualified for it at this young age. And I remember not just our family, not just my mom, but also the other families on the team, a lot of us couldn't afford it. And so due to that, my ODP dreams were crushed. I was not able to pursue this idea of training to play in the Olympics at a professional level. And I remember thinking in that moment, this is why the rich kids are so good. At that time in my life, I was playing at a really elite club for soccer, and there were some really excellent teams. And I remember I never was able to break through that cusp to the elite level because I remember thinking, well, to have the private one-on-one coaching, to have the really intensive training camps and the boot camps and the developmental programs that they have, you have to have money. It costs money to train somebody to train your kid how to play soccer. And we just never did that because we didn't have the money for it, simply. And so every day I was out in the backyard, I was juggling the soccer ball, I was working on my footwork, I was doing sprints down the hill, up the hill in our neighborhood. I was going for runs. I was keeping my stamina up all on my own accord because I knew that we could not afford to hire a professional for formal training. And that's just how it was. But I stayed disciplined. I stayed motivated. I made the team. Unfortunately, could not go any further because we didn't have the money to pursue it. And in that moment, I remember thinking this sucks. And I hope I never have to do that to my kids. I hope that when I am a mom, I can give my kids every opportunity that they want and they deserve just because money is not an object. So that was one instance in my life. Second instance, I worked pretty much until the time I was legally able to receive a W-2. So when I turned 16, I got a job at a deli, and then I got a job lifeguarding in the summers, and I absolutely hated that job. That could also be a whole nother podcast, but in the summers, I worked as much as I possibly could to save money that I know would float me throughout the rest of the year. There was one particular instance when I came home from a lifeguarding shift. I think it was a 10 to 3 shift. And I get home and the electricity is completely off in the house. And I called my mom on my cell phone and I'm like, why is the electricity not working? What's happening? And my mom more or less told me, yeah, it was between that or the mortgage or the water bill. And I decided you probably wanted hot water versus electricity for this month. And I just thought to myself, okay, this is how it's going. This is where life is. And at the time, I didn't really think a lot of it. Looking back, I'm like, man, that is actually really crazy that my mom had to pick and choose which bills to pay for the month because there just wasn't another option. So that was another instance in my life. And then the third instance really hit home for me. I remember we had a super, super busy week. I worked over 40 hours at the deli. over summer. And I just remember being like, man, I can't wait to see that paycheck. This is all going to be worth it. And it wasn't just like making sandwiches. Like we had to scrub floors, we had to scrub toilets, we had to cut things. I was on the grill, I was scrubbing the grill. Like it was an actual physically hard job. And I remember placing my paycheck on the kitchen counter. It was the most I had ever earned, like ever, out of babysitting, out of tutoring that I did, anything. And I placed it on the counter, and I think I went off and did something. The next day I come back, and I remember coming home from work again, and I was going to deposit my check. I didn't have direct deposit. I liked going to the bank. I liked the feeling that it felt to deposit money into my account and see my available balance and just think, okay, good, I'm good for X amount of days, whatever. That paycheck that I put on the counter was completely gone. I called my mom freaking out because I had just earned so much money, and I'm like, oh my God, I lost my paycheck. Like that had never happened to me before. I was super responsible as a young adult. I think I still am today. And I called my mom, and she said, oh no, I deposited your paycheck. And I was like, oh, wow, thank you. That was very nice. And she's like, no, I deposited it into my account because we had to pay bills and I didn't have anything for the rest of the month. And I sat with that, and I just thought, man, like I just worked my butt off to earn this paycheck, and now I'm basically using it to provide for my family. So I was prideful in a way of, wow, I get to provide for my family, but also kind of ashamed of like, I am 16 years old and I have to provide for my family. And the amount of pressure that puts on a teenager, I just don't have words to verbalize what that feels like. Maybe some of you can relate. And again, I am not by any means saying that I had it bad or I had a terrible childhood, but these moments define me. These are things that wired my brain about how to think about money. Growing up, I had to undo a lot of those topics of we don't have the money, or I can't afford this, or just not right now, it's too expensive. I had to rewire all of that, quite like a lot of us do, to get through these barriers of it's okay to have more money in your account. It's okay to not live paycheck to paycheck. It's okay to earn 6 figures in a month and not feel ashamed about that. I had to rewire so much of that in my brain, and I'm sure a lot of us have had to too. I would love to help some of you guys with that if you are needing that, if you have a bad money mindset, if you have trouble asking for money from patients. The reason I bring it up is because I know what it's like to be financially stressed, to be financially at rock bottom, to be financially at the bottom of the barrel. When I went to college and I applied for every single scholarship I possibly could because I knew money was just going to be a factor, and I only came out with very, very minimal debt, I still lived paycheck to paycheck. Even in college, I was so stressed about paying my rent and paying for books and paying for whatever, alcohol for the party. I carry that into my young adult life, and I still had so much to rewire. And so I know what it's like to not have money, which is why now having money, I've had to reset a lot of things in my life. But the biggest thing is that for my children, I want to provide them the best life where I can provide them any opportunity they want or desire or want to go after because we have the resources to do so. And I know my parents wanted that for me as well. They just didn't know simply how to do that. We have the knowledge, we have the skill set, and I know that I never want to feel those feelings again like I did when I was a teenager and when I was young. And I never want my children to feel that or know what it's like to feel that. And so if you guys want help with any mindset stuff, especially around money, I love working with people about that. Please check out our website, paththovictorycairo.com. Find us on social media. We would love to connect. I hope this helped somebody and spoke to somebody.